Stop. Think about this. What comes to mind when you think of the best exotic energy primaries? For Arc, this is clearly Trinity Ghoul. For Solar, this is very clearly Sunshot. But for Void? Graviton Lance? Collective Obligation? The Manticore? No, I'm kidding. The Manticore will never be good. Truly, the battle for the best Void exotic primary is a two-sided ordeal, but which weapon will claim victory over the other? Let's find out, shall we? First, let's start with the similarities. To begin, they both have a similar fire rate, 300 for Graviton Lance and 390 for Collective Obligation, with the former taking 5.7 seconds to empty the magazine and the latter 5.3 seconds. And truly, this is where the similarities end. In order to adequately determine which is the better Void primary, I've come up with a scoring system that allocates points out of 5 to each weapon based on its merit in the following categories. Number 1, Elemental Synergy. Number 2, Chain Reaction Capability. Number 3, Ease of Use. Number 4, Build Synergy. Number 5, Ease of Acquisition. And number 6, Feel. So let's start with category 1, Elemental Synergy. Since both weapons are void, they're automatically in a higher bracket compared to other elements due to the existence of volatile rounds. Individually, however, Graviton Lance has no elemental verb synergy in the sense that the void explosions from its main perk do not apply any void debuffs like Suppress, Weaken, or Volatile. Collective Obligation, on the other hand, has the potential to access and apply 3 separate void elemental verbs, these being Suppress, Weaken, and Volatile, lending it perhaps the best elemental synergy of any exotic primary, not just void ones. Furthermore, verbs like Suppress and Weaken directly synergize with Echo of Harvest and Echo of Domineering. Because of this, I'm giving Graviton Lance a 1 out of 5 and Collective Obligation a 5 out of 5 for elemental synergy. Moving on, let's talk about chain reaction capability. For example, take Sunshot. 1 kill from Sunshot is enough to start a chain reaction that can infinitely kill any enemy within its vicinity so long as there are enemies available. Fortunately, Graviton functions identically to Sunshot in the sense that each kill can chain into another, into another, into another, and so on. And for this reason, I'm giving Graviton Lance a 5 out of 5 for its chain reaction capability. Collective Obligation, on the other hand, sadly doesn't even come close in this regard, since the strength of the weapon comes purely from the void verbs it has access to, 2 of which don't have any innate chaining capabilities. However, since it can access volatile rounds, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 for its chain reaction capability. Next, we have a very important factor, ease of use. Part of what makes weapons like Sunshot and Trinity Ghoul so good is that they require barely any effort to get their exotic perk rolling. Simply get a kill and it's already operating at its maximum potential. In terms of the void primaries, Graviton Lance requires no setup at all for its exotic perk in the sense that every kill you get will always trigger a void explosion. On the flip side, in order to use Collective Obligation at its fullest potential, you must go out of your way to make several enemies suppressed, weakened, and volatile, which requires significant investment into subclass attributes such as suppression grenades, some source of volatile rounds, and a method of weakening. Additionally, if you want to use Graviton Lance, you are free to use a non-matching subclass, but in order to be most effective with Collective Obligation, you must be running a void subclass, otherwise you are literally running a perkless weapon. For these reasons, Graviton Lance is receiving a 5 out of 5 for ease of use and Collective Obligation a 2 out of 5. The next category we're going to cover is Build Synergy, which refers to all manner of build combinations you can use in order to fully maximize the potential of each weapon. Warlock Void builds typically revolve around Nezarec Sin or Verity's Brow, and Graviton is definitely a nice fit for these builds, and you could also try some fun shenanigans with Astrocyte Verse and Collective Obligation after the volatile on Blink changes. Titans, you could try Second Chance or Doomfangs, but the true undisputed king of exotic armor for void builds is none other than Falcon's Halberg for hunters. When paired with either weapon, this exotic lends them considerable strength through its capacity to provide infinite uptime on volatile rounds, and furthermore, it synergizes so well with Collective Obligation that they are practically made for each other. With this combo, not only are you spreading volatile everywhere, you're also weakening, suppressing, and healing off every kill if you build into it correctly. So with that, I'm giving Collective Obligation a 5 out of 5 and Graviton Lance a 2 out of 5 for build synergy. Now onto the penultimate category, ease of acquisition. Put simply, Graviton Lance is far easier to obtain since it comes from exotic engrams or is occasionally part of Xur's inventory, and Collective Obligation is a raid exotic, so this is pretty much a no contest. In terms of scoring, Graviton Lance gets a 4 out of 5 and Collective Obligation 2 out of 5. You may be asking, why not 1 out of 5? And this is because when Vow of the Disciple is the current raid, Collective Obligation can be farmed. Moving on to our last category, feel. This section refers purely to how the weapon feels to use, i.e. do they feel clunky, satisfying, or average. Me personally, I'd argue that once you have a fully maxed Collective Obligation up and running, it feels far more satisfying to use than Graviton Lance ever could, not to mention in team play you are also actively helping out your teammates by suppressing and weakening every ad. Score-wise, I'm giving Graviton Lance a 3 out of 5 and Collective Obligation a 4 out of 5. Overall, Graviton Lance scores a nice 20 out of 30 and, drumroll please, 21 out of 30 for Collective Obligation. So it's settled. Collective Obligation is the better Void primary, beating Graviton Lance only by a small margin. I hope this video helped inform your decision of which Void exotic primary to run, but keep in mind that both options presented are relatively equal, so I'll leave you to be the judge. Bye for now, dear viewer.